right. Yes, still Give her another round of applause. I mean, that inspired me because I still ride. We still ride. We're still doing things. That's all right. Thank you so much. That is beautiful. So we're going to move on to our next panel. Whew, I'm excited. As today, Helping Hearts to Heal, this was a day to educate and to inspire and empower one another. We're going to move to the second panel, and then we're going to feed you. And I'm just excited for the second part of the day, to the inspirational and power where, we had to get those tears off. Sometimes you got to shake some things off. Just shake it off. Let it go. We have a wonderful, wonderful group of professional women here that have stepped forward to help us, to empower and give us resource information and send us out. There is the first part of the panel, and they'll be speaking about getting support to maintain mental wellness. Unfortunately, it's a part of it. I go to therapy, I have Christian advisors, I pray to God, but a lot of people don't know what kind of things are out there. And then we also have professional women who are experienced in getting support from the legal system. On the end there, we have Rashida Grenache, and Rashida serves. She's also a community within our community. She knows about loss and grief, and she's a mother. But she didn't roll up her sleeves, or she didn't tuck tail and run. She had a voice, and she took it the other way. She went and fought with them, with the law. And Rashida served on the Citizens Police Review Board. So we'd like to welcome her. We also have Dr. Suri Brown. And Suri Brown came forward. She heard me speak, and she invited me to Merritt College and Cal Berkeley, and she gave me a platform, my husband and I, to talk about Alan and share our story. And before I go any further, you guys want to know where the men are. And I got to stop and give a shout out, because I got a wonderful man. God has blessed me, a wonderful husband. And, sometimes we do what couples do, but he has been my rock. When I was lost and I didn't know which way I was going, he wouldn't even cry in front of me. He would let me cry. And then, he had to do his thing. And Alan was our baby boy. And I will go further. You'll meet, lots of people have met him, but stand up, sweetheart, and wave to everybody. This is Mr. Alan from Alan Blueprint. This is Alan's father, Ashley Janae's father, Aaron's father, and my Prince Charming, the love of my life, and number one supporter. Sorry, I just put that in there. I love you. Okay. And Dr. Brown let us come to her class. She let us speak about Alan. She sent her students. She gave them extra credit if they came to rallies and volunteered. We have Dr. Suri Brown. And these women have a lot of information from the legal support system. And then my girl, Ann. Let me tell you about Ann Wells, Butterfield, Siegel, my girl, whoever you want to call her. Ann is my girl. Ann had my back from day one. Ann and I met when I worked in a dental office in Berkeley. And I used to just be her dental assistant, and I listened to all she and my doctor talk back and forth. And she always had a good answer, and she always had a smart and educational response, and he loved that. And I didn't know that our paths would cross. And when this happened to Alan, she is her loving mother arms around me and stood with me and supported. And she and her husband became my attorneys. And she's been fighting with me from day one. And she's here to give support and educate about the legal system. And her husband is running for the mayor of Oakland. So we can get out and vote for him, Mr. Dan Siegel. So right now today, we're going to do this panel. And then we're going to go eat some lunch. And he's going to come back and share with us this afternoon. And we're going to get out and tell somebody to go and vote. And we're going to make sure we vote. Because these two people want change in Oakland. And they're not going to tuck tail and run once they get in office. They're going to bring in the policy. And they're going to stop police brutality and stop the crime and answer some things. And we're going to do some big things in Oakland. You watch and see. So first and foremost, I'd also like to talk about my sister who just got behind me. She heard about this conference and she stepped up and she gave me resource information and she gave me advice, and she also came and became a panelist. This is my girl. Her name is Gigi Crowder, and she works with the Alameda County Behavior and Mental Health, and she has a lot of information. And when we needed somebody else, she called in her girl, and her name is Dr. Melissa Valez, and she is MD. And she does work in the community to help the people that are left behind, the children. And we're going to have them give us some resource information and talk about some things to do. And we're going to move fast because I know it's food. And then I want to come back and inspire and march and sing and listen and do all the fun stuff we're going to do this afternoon. But right now, we're going to start with our first panelist. And her name is Rashida Grenache.
Upon all of us. First, a disclaimer, I've never been on the Citizens Police Review Board, so I'm not sure where that balancing arose, but just to set the record straight. I could have been on the previous panel. I lost my husband and son to the Oakland Police Department in 1993. I'm not going to go into that story because I think we've all heard more than enough of what impacts happen and what abuses and cover-ups happen around those kinds of events. If anybody wants more details about what happened to my family, you can just email me and I will send you a 35-page document I wrote after I found out the truth. It took me 6 years. But what I want to say is that on that day, December 15th, 1993, I knew that my life was altered forever. I knew that the trajectory was going to change, and I promised myself that the Oakland Police Department would regret that they ever came to my house. Not vengeance, but justice and accountability. And so I was encouraged to work with an organization I had no knowledge of at that time, PUEBLA, People United for a Better Life in Oakland. And I went to that organization in the spring of '94 because they had just started a program for community safety and police accountability. And in terms of my mental health and spiritual health, that was the best thing for me to do. Had I not had that opportunity to work on finding solutions to create change, I'm not sure what my alternative would have been. I'm not sure how I would have managed. I still had 3 surviving sons, and who no longer had their father. And so I obviously couldn't do anything rash. So I was able to channel everything I felt into the work, into trying to make what happened to us count for something, which is what I know many of my sister mothers have done. And we all know, because things have not improved substantially or at all in all of those years, that we have a very steep hill to climb. All of us who have been through this experience of law enforcement shootings know what the terrain is like. We're now learning more as there's more and more mainstream coverage, particularly in Ferguson. We can see what has been hidden for many people for a long time, the inner workings of the system that make it virtually impossible for any of us to achieve justice. But that means we just need to be smarter. And now that there is more national attention and more awareness of the cover-ups and the rigging of the system and all of the various maneuverings that prevent us from ever achieving justice, we need to take advantage of this moment. We need to unify. We need to coalesce. In the 90s, when there also were lots of police-involved shootings, there was an effort on the part of some people to create a national coalition for police accountability. And it existed for a while. It was originated by a woman in Chicago named Mary Powers, and we had several meetings where people would come from all over the country. But I think the problem that we all faced is the fact that this, although it's a national epidemic, the problem is that it operates within jurisdictions, within states, and therefore it's very hard to achieve anything on a federal level. So we need to start getting smart, and we need to start working with our attorney friends and our political allies, and we need to start figuring out a game plan, because it has to happen. It has to happen. And what I realized when this happened to my family was that although we often talk about how this is a nation that has civil rights, what I learned is that there are no civil rights unless you can enforce them. And most victims cannot. And for those people who cannot enforce the civil rights that they were deprived of, they might as well be in Morocco or Turkey or any other despotic country, because those civil rights are not real. And I learned that on December 15th. So I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'm grateful for Molly and Geraldine and all of you who have come together, and I'm hoping that we can start to work in a really focused way, and that our grief and our anger will give rise to our power and effectiveness. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashida. Rashida and I have worked together for many years in terms of Pueblo, but it is terrible. I've been in Oakland for 40 years, and it's so terrible to see so many children killed in the city. And I live in East Oakland, and anyway, I'm going to read my prepared remarks because I have so much to say about our police and police brutality and the violence of our children in terms of other children and how that happened. So I was asked by Geraldine, and thank you, beloved Geraldine, Molly, and Brent, and all of those who helped organize this. I was was asked to speak about what happens when your child is killed, as a lawyer, and as what is it, sort of how it unfolds after your child dies by homicide. The death of any child of any age is devastating. However, the pain and anguish is compounded when the death comes at the hands of another human being, let alone a police officer or other law enforcement officer, because that is an extrajudicial killing and shocks the family members and the community at large. Parents and family members face many complicated issues, even as they try to make sense of the incomprehensible that someone knowingly, intentionally killed a child who was loved and will be so missed. Possible complicating issues. When a child dies by homicide, there are unfortunately dozens of unique issues that may complicate the grief, the process of grief for the parents and family left behind. These may include that the child may be this main evidence, and an autopsy and the investigation may cause a lengthy delay in the release of your child's body to you. This has been something that I've dealt with directly with Raheem Brown's death, and having to get body from the coroner, the autopsy report, the police report. I mean, there's so much that we can talk about it. I'd be glad to stay and talk to people more after. So, number two, the child's body may not be found for proper interment or cremation. If found, your body may not be viewable. And this is another issue that you have to, anyway, there's so much to fight around in this terrible system. A police investigation can take weeks, months, and even years. And that's, again, where the community pressure, the organizing, the lawyers, the Rashidas of the world, and Gerald's and all, and many others here, you have to fight for information at every step. And just, for example, after somebody has been killed, you have to immediately, as a family, as a community, go to the site, talk to the witnesses, talk to everybody who may be near there, because particularly in an officer-involved shooting, the police will be there attempting to talk to everybody too and try and intimidate the neighbors and anybody who might have observed something that it shows that the police officer was liable for that murder and or that killing. Authorities may first look for suspects within the family, creating a re-victimization of those very survivors feeling the most acute pain. Information on new developments may trickle into the family, and sometimes weeks and months may pass without contact unless initiated by the family. If the child was murdered in another country, the family may be forced to deal with that country's law enforcement and legal system, which may have completely different procedures than in the United States. This happened in relationship to a young man killed in Oakland who was undocumented and died in custody in juvenile hall. And so there's all kinds of issues with Mexico, and anyway, this may not affect people in this room, but that becomes quite complicated as well. In addition, there may be language and communication barriers and untold costly and frustrating trips. Your child may become dehumanized by the police, and this is often the case. The press, the prosecutors, and others refer to the victim, the body, and the deceased, and sometimes they make up stories or they say terrible things about the person who was killed, in order to make that terrible first impression with the community at large. The murderer may never be caught or may choose suicide or death rather than capture. If someone is charged with a murder, the trial, including appeals, can take years. The murderer may go free for any number of reasons or receive a sentence far lighter than the family expected. The child may be blamed by some being in the quote-unquote wrong area or participating in a quote-unquote type of behavior, unquote, thus contributing to the murder. Media coverage will take away any hopes of privacy the family may normally value. In case of an older child, the parents may not be the next of kin, as the spouse and immediate family may be given information and kept in the loop, quote unquote. Meanwhile, the parents may be left on their own to learn whatever they can about the case and developments. And again, this is where the Buford Foundation and the Oscar Grant Foundation and other organizations are so critical, Pueblo included, to basically help a family unite. Because when you're traumatized as a parent, you have nowhere to look, and there's a sense of helplessness. So more and more, all these, the work that people are doing here is critical for families to be able to sustain themselves in that horrible, horrible first period after a child is murdered. And most officials strive to be sympathetic, but family members can feel like they're living a nightmare. It is normal, as death notification is received, to feel shock and disbelief. numbness, confusion, anger, denial, and the feeling that the world is suddenly stopped. Your world is shattered. Murder is a violation of everything you were taught and believed about rightness and fairness in life. As time passes, reactions may include rage, a desire for revenge, anxiety, inability to sleep or eat, or feelings of hopelessness and depression. Other reactions may include frustration, fear that the murderer may return, survivor guilt, and self-blame for being unable to protect the child. All of these are normal reactions that need to be addressed in the bereavement process. Researchers suggest that post-traumatic stress disorder is not unusual in survivors and may become part of their new reality. Notification of others, first within the immediate family and then of relatives, friends, and even employers, can weigh heavily in the aftermath of the initial notification. Often the press has provided the name of the child who died before the family can properly notify others. Even if the murder occurred elsewhere, it is likely the press will want to stay in touch with the family every step of the way. Dealing with the media needs to be done in a way that creates the least additional stress to the survivors. Sometimes through a family representative like an attorney, a clergy person, or even a close family friend. It is so important that as right after a child is killed and you get contacted by the media, to have someone there to intervene who knows how to deal with that, who knows how to speak to that media person, because otherwise statements can be made out of emotional, all kinds of terrible feelings that may not be helpful in the long run. So it's important to have someone you can trust to do that. A knowledgeable, caring person or victim's advocate appointed by the court may also make the legal process more understandable and less daunting. But the pathway to healing does not run through the courtroom. It is just a necessary detour that may prolong the process of dealing with the death. Despite what others may naively say, capture and conviction of the murder will never bring closure, quote unquote. No punishment can bring back your child, but support is available. How do the survivors survive? The lives of family members becomes a balancing act as everyone reacts in their own way to the child's murder. Some may try to continue normally while others may not, understanding that normal is gone forever. Unfortunately, when a murder has occurred, the hard work of grieving must be put on hold while the family faces the challenges that the child's death brings into their lives as survivors. There will be many trigger points throughout the pursuit of justice and afterward that will bring back the horror of what has happened. And I know this more directly through Geraldine, but others too. These can include seeing or identifying the accused. 2, news accounts of the event or similar events. Hearings, depositions, trials, and any number of other points in the legal process, including parole hearings. The occurrence of life events that the child will never again experience, such as holidays, anniversaries, or when the child was born or died. Be prepared for these trigger points, and I'm sure you all are, in your efforts on each member of the family. Your reactions are not signs of weakness, but are appropriate human responses to what has happened. What can you do to help yourself? The murder of a family member is extremely traumatic. If the investigation results in an arrest, many jurisdictions offer victim advocate services to assist family members throughout the court process. This can be very beneficial in helping protect and prepare the family for each phase of a criminal trial. But limit your direct exposure or contact with media coverage of the murder. This type of news reporting can be emotionally punishing to the family and frustrating, particularly when inaccurate information is continually repeated. Avoid excessive thinking about how your loved one died, as this can take an emotional toll and leave you feeling overwhelmed. This is all, advice, but, I know it's so much more complicated and difficult. Okay, thanks. Thank you. And anyway, there's a lot more to this, but, so please, I'm glad to talk to people after. Everybody grieves differently and at their own pace. As long as you're not hurting yourself or others, there is no right or wrong way to think, feel, or behave. Feelings of anger, fear, and anxiety are normal responses after a murder. So I'm going to jump ahead to some of the more legal stuff, and I'm sure others will speak about some of these same issues. But so when a child is killed, particularly by a police officer, and that's when it's clear that you have a person that you can charge. And I think, our experience in the Bay, particularly in East Oakland, and Oakland, is when an officer kills one of our children, we have to mobilize immediately. We have to organize everybody possible to come to the support of that family. We also have to, as we did with Alan Bluford's murder, we had to fight. We had to go to Oakland City Hall for months to demand the police report. We had to go to the coroner's office to demand their report, the autopsy report. We could not have gotten what we did get ultimately without hundreds and hundreds of people mobilizing for Alan Bluford. And I think the Alan Bluford story and the coalition that emerged as a result of that organizing was very powerful. And of course, we did not get justice because Miguel Masso, who killed in cold-blooded murder of Alan Bluford, has never been charged. He's now been released by OPD as he's gotten out on disability for, post-traumatic stress disorder, because it is how many tours in Iraq, and he was already a Maine soldier when he came to work for OPD. But just briefly, okay, so you need, this is I think very important, because you have to get a lawyer who you can trust, who is experienced, and who will take care of you, the family, and be available to you. Many of our lawyers, they're very good lawyers and they are successful, but you also have to, you have a year from the time your child has been killed to get a lawyer. You have a 1-year statute of limitations. And you should, with others maybe, interview lawyers, get a sense, talk to other people that have experience with those particular lawyers to get a sense of whether you can trust them, whether you think they will do the right thing by you. Because sometimes in our, as a lawyer myself, there's a whole spectrum of lawyers out there, and some are incredibly principled, ethical, and wonderful, and do amazing work, and others are not so. So it's important that you do, like when you want to buy a car, or you want to do something, you want to spend a lot of time and energy and investment, in particularly your emotional life, you are the terrible life that you experienced as a result of the loss of your child, you have to have someone that you can trust and respect. In any case, there's so much to say, but thank you very much, and hopefully we can, I just want to say, this is such an amazing event, and we have to do this over and over again, and develop this movement so everyone in this whole Bay Area gets stronger as a result. And when another child is killed, hopefully that won't happen, but we have to come to the support of each other and be there for the long haul. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sherry Brown, and I teach African American Studies at Merritt College. And I really want to thank Sister Geraldine and Sister Molly for pulling this together and pulling all of us together, and special thanks to the mothers as well. And really today I'm here to talk to the mothers, which is all of us, whether you've had children or not. We are mothers and keepers of our children. And it's the strength of mothers, it's the strength that it takes to give birth, it's the strength that it takes to nurture, it's the strength that it takes to raise our children that we're pulling on here for each other's mothers, and for our children in our community who, like has been said, are dying before their time and dying at the hands of evil hands. Our college stands on a proud legacy, and it's called the home of the Black Panther Party. And that's because the college was located on Grove Street, which is now Martin Luther King Boulevard, and it's the college where Hugh P. Newton and Bobby Seale were students who formed a student organization that eventually turned into the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, just a few doors down from our college. And so we are not the overly intellectual, we think we are above the people. We are the people. We are the college for the community. And I say that because we understand that clearly what our mission is to combine community activism with empowerment about the knowledge of history and facts and legal systems and justice, and pull those together so that our students become advocates for what's right. We know, and you all know who are here, that when you stand on the square of righteousness and justice, you can see injustice so much more clearly. And you can understand that it takes us to be a part of the movements to end this injustice. And so I thank you all for coming together as a part of this movement. I keep telling students that it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. This is the next Black Power, civil rights, abolitionist, turn over your head movement. And we try to become more aware. You can feel it, you can see it. When we rose up for our beloved brother Oscar Grant and organized and turned out and knocked it down, if that's what it took to get the kind of media attention, then so be it. That's where I stand. That's where I stand. And that movement that has encouraged all the other movements, and here we see Ferguson, and we're watching television, or maybe we got the chance to go and participate. It's like it's coming, it's coming. People are tired across racial lines, across class lines. People are sick and tired, and they're becoming more and more aware of how unjust the system is and always has been. Please understand that the history of the police started with the slave patrols back on the plantations. Please understand that mothers have been crying for their children for centuries in this wicked nation. We gave birth in slavery, and they took our children, and they sold our children, and they whipped our children, and they killed our children. 50% of all black children born in slavery died before they reached the age of 5. The tears that we are crying, the emotions we are feeling are not just about today. It's centuries of rage, and we are tired, and we are organizing it, and it is going to be done. Because when mothers step forward, it's going to be done. And I say that so sincerely. We are the mothers of humanity, the mothers of civilization. We birthed the entire planet. We stand on a long line of righteous fighting sisters. Harriet Tubman, a warrior, a radical, a revolutionary. They had a $40,000 bounty on her head. The most wanted criminal in the United States at the time. She was 5'2". Had to carry a rifle with her to hold up that rifle to grown black men who might be afraid to leave the plantation, and she knew they might snitch if they go back. We call on the spirit of Harriet Tubman. I just had the opportunity with other teachers to go to Brazil, which is where more Africans were brought from Africa during the slave trade than anywhere else, including here. And everybody looks like us in that country. There are police murders by the tens of thousands in Brazil in the last decade. It's so alarming, and the people are doing the same thing we're doing here. Organizing, mothers coming together, saying, I don't care, I'm not afraid, I'm going to fight. Well, in Brazil, we learned about an organization, a spiritual organization called the Sisterhood of the Good Death. Meaning that when we die, it's going to be a good die because we spent our life fighting for justice. And this sisterhood that's so powerful was created during slavery in Brazil. And what they did was they came together and they identified other strong mothers on plantations, and they went down and they freed those mothers against the slave system and brought them up to join this sisterhood. And they're still active in Brazil, and they have an annual conference where tens of thousands of women come from around the world. It's amazing what happens when mothers come together.
Yeah.
I am so not concerned about this movement because we have everything that it takes. We have everything that it takes. We have the legal advice and knowledge. We have the political representatives, the few that really are on our side. We have the communities, we have the churches, we have the mosques, we have the women, we have the mothers. We call on Ida B. Wells. This police brutality, this murder, this cooperation to kill our children is not new. And we will continue to fight like Ida B. Wells. In our department, we have done a number of things to create healing spaces around this issue of mass incarceration and police brutality and murder. We developed a class called the Prison Industrial Complex, African American Incarceration. The class was actually developed back in the 70s because our whole curriculum was so tight by the people who organized the department, the first in the country. And all we're doing is brushing it off for what's happening today. And this class becomes such an important space for our students, young, middle-aged, old. We have a range of students to talk about what the police are doing and to politicize it. Yeah, Dr. Brown, the police, We understand you know what's going on. We don't have to tell you what's going on. but we want to politicize it and help you understand it and historicize it, and then bring forth the people who are fighting into the space so that you don't feel hopeless, but you know you need to join an organization. You need to go to the protest. You need to participate in fighting for justice. In that space, students are able to talk about their experiences with the police freely without judgment. And so I encourage you to consider taking the class. We bring the class into the community. We're teaching inside Juvenile Hall on Fairmont. You should see what the young people after they take our class. To the guards and to the system. They're reading Mumia Abul Jamal, and we take our program into the juvenile hall system. We teach at Oakland Tech High School. Classes are free for high school students, and they get college credit and double high school credit. Please know that that's available for your young people to know about the system. We also have student organizing in the form of the Black Student Union, and I only have a minute left to tell you that the Black Student Union's #1 issue is police brutality. They hold campaigns to educate each other, read together, go to protests together, and currently they're organizing around what's happening at Merritt College. We're the home of the Black Panther Party, but we're going to turn into the home of the Oakland Police Department, and we're not having it. We're not having it.
That's right.
There are some things happening right now around our Administration of Justice program where they're increasing policing, increasing police presence, and getting ready to set up the tactical training for the OPD on our campus, and we're not having it. We want the community to become aware of the kinds of things that are happening at our college, because we know that we stand on this strong history, and we don't want that history to be overturned and transformed into something that becomes a place that trains the next generation of Oakland Police Department. So our college is open. We welcome any mothers, any parents, anyone who's organizing. Come. We can help you fundraise. We can help you have a platform, a free space to hold events, to talk about what's going on, to talk about your cases. We are you, you are us. It's a college for the community. And I thank you all, and thank you to the organizers for coming today.
I want to first talk to the mothers about the fact that some of you lost your children through violent acts perpetrated on them from individuals from their community, their own community. And I want you to understand that's just about the same as having been shot by a cop. And the reason it is because our system has been set up for us to hurt each other because of the deep pain that we have in our community by not addressing the traumas that date back to slavery. If you ever saw the scene in Roots, it was very intentional that the individual who was whipping Kunta Kinte, trying to force him to call himself Toby, which was the connection to his faith, the connection to his father, to break his spirit, was done by an African, right? It was done by an African, and that's what's happening now. All systems in play are to continue those patterns. So that's the same as having been shot by a cop when you're in a country that puts systems in place where you're taught to hurt each other. So for me, this panel, where no matter who the bullet came from, it's all the same because of our society. I work for behavioral health care services, and I actually thought when I got the job as the ethnic services manager, they wanted me to improve health outcomes for those with mental health challenges and for African Americans. I now know that was never the intent. And when I started doing my job too well, and we started seeing positive outcomes, I was muzzled. I was off for 4 months at my job because I said, wait a minute, as I was teaching a CIT class, wait a minute, this looks different in the African American community, this looks different in the Latino community. You have to consider culture, you have to consider language barriers, you have to consider the moms of those who have mental health challenges and how hard it is for them to pick up and call for 5150, because oftentimes they are putting their child at risk by just doing that. So what I see today on the panel was mothers who have children who have mental health challenges and mothers who are from communities in which their lives are not valued, they're dehumanized. And so it makes it easy for law enforcement to shoot and kill people who they carry no value for in the first place. So I was kind of trying to figure out how'd you get so radical? Then I remembered I grew up on Grove Street. Okay. So even though it wasn't always a part of who I was, it go into faith centers. We don't always get an opportunity to see them walk into their purpose and their connection, right? But if we have them in the faith center early on, then guess what happens? That's going to always be a part of who they are. And so for me, I figured it out a long time ago. If this system is set up in such a way that they really don't want to see the outcomes, we can't rely on the behavioral health care systems and accounting systems and educational systems to do it for us. We have to turn back to the script and where we came from, which was our faith community. So I created a training called Mental Health Friendly Communities to train faith communities how to be more supportive of those with mental health challenges, and that would include any person who's in the society who's been told over and over and over again they're not important, they're not valued. So unfortunately, that winds up being African Americans just by being born in this country, Latinos just by being unwanted sometimes in this country, white Americans who have mental health challenges just because they become estranged, they're not wanted. So this is about having us have a deeper understanding of why the systemic issues are in play, that there's no true dialogue, there's no true action. I drove into my parking spot on Friday where we have 12% of our population is African American and 100% of the decision makers are white American. And that's not to say that white Americans can't make positive choices for others, but I decided I'm going to test the system when they took my parking spot away. I was going to walk in and I was going to say, why not have us all sign a petition, those of us who have a hard time with seeing white Americans make decisions on behalf of African Americans who are 60% of who we serve. Because it's very hard for me at almost 6 feet tall to accept a job as a buyer at a petite boutique, at a petite women's boutique. I would have to step back and say, what? I'm probably not the best person for this job. Or let me go get someone else who could better do it for me. But when you see over and over again people who don't look like you making decisions for you, and then you see our criminal justice mental health system being about 70% African American, and we're only 12% of the population, or our general criminal justice system being so heavily, go into an open courtroom and you would think white Americans do not live in the city because they're all African Americans. So I said, because everyone that I asked about their parking space said, I really don't care about the parking space. You can have mine. I decided rather than start a petition from the people who are still slighted by not having one, let me challenge those individuals who have one. Are you really about social justice? Because if you are, you should know there's a lot of people like me who won't drink from the won't drink from the colored fountain. We're in post civil rights, and there's no reason why any department with the kind of parking space we have should have anyone with privileged parking. We're there to make decisions on behalf of community members that keep law enforcement from hurting them. Because when I grew up in Oakland, it was called protect and serve. Why do I tense up and my blood pressure shoots up when I see, and I'm a law-abiding citizen. That shouldn't be the case. I shouldn't get all tense when I see law enforcement. I should feel like, oh, if some criminals are around, good, the cops are here. Instead, I feel like, whoa, let me be careful. My sons, both of them, straight A students, had several contacts with law enforcement. I used to be convinced that it was the young men who wore their pants sagging and all of that. I'm more convinced it's the ones who might be successful and challenge the system. So for me being here today, I look at the faith community who oftentimes have not held up the community, have not been helpful, to get them in a position of being more helpful to those with mental health challenges, those who are African American, Latino, API, etc., those who are in our society are not appear to be as valued, and it's a class issue around wealth. So we have to do that. So I started looking at solutions, and so for me, when I was able to have an opportunity to meet people who offer solutions, I got excited because I never want to be sitting at my desk again, get a call from a reporter telling me, do I want to come and see the video where my son was killed? Of course I fell to the floor because I didn't know. I was the aunt who called when my nephew was killed. But you care so much about a story. If I had been the mother, that might have did it for me right then. Because I'm thinking my son is at home in Antioch and he got shot while I was at work. That's about our media sensationalizing stories, being so quick to be the first one on the scene, but not taking the backstory. So when my nephew was killed, I contacted the media only because it said no known drug activity. No, he didn't have any known activity. But what he did have was a bright future that was robbed from him from other African American young men who were suffering from suicide by proxy, which is what we do. When you are hurting so bad, you have a sense of hopelessness, if you get or shoot and kill someone that looks like you've been yourself, because many of us grew up in faith communities and we've been told we can't be forgiven if we kill ourselves. That's why our suicides look different. We don't leave notes, but we put ourselves in harm's way. So when John Sasaki called me and told me that my son was killed, I hit the floor. I picked up the phone later and found out, no, they found the killers of my nephew, Charles Butler, who had been killed here because someone tapped his. But I have to have forgiveness for the young man who did it, because I get the bigger picture, thanks to Huey P. Newton and others who let me sit there at the newspaper headquarters and hear the dialogue that was taking place. So it says my heart to know that they would take that institution and put OPD training where something like the blood of our people was put there and sacrifices was made. And so we will join in the effort. But I also said earlier, I look for solutions. And so when I met the person sitting to the right of me, Dr. Melissa Valles, and she told me about a book that she was writing, I look for upstream approaches. So an upstream approach is not waiting until the babies fall into the ocean and going picking and catching some of them, but going up on the bridge, right? And find out who's throwing these babies in the water in the first place. Who can stop this from happening? So birthing purpose in our children is very important. So an upstream approach to me is planting seeds of hope and promise early on. So I'm going to pass the mic to her and she can share how she was led by God to do her work. I work for the county, I get the paycheck, but I work for God.
Thank you, Judy. That was a wonderful introduction. My name is Melissa Valles. I'm a child psychiatrist and I work for Alameda County Behavioral Health Care Service. And I'm one of a handful of child psychiatrists in our county that actually work specifically for our county and with the severely mentally ill children. And, you know, just like Gigi said, I wrote a book, a children's book. And the title of it is God Has a Plan for Me. And it's a book that's written combining my faith and combining my training to promote self-esteem and resiliency in young children. So I'm curious to know how many of you in the room have children that you're taking care of and that you're nurturing right now? And how many of you in the room have children in your life that may not be yours, but that you are nurturing as your caring? So being a mother is having maybe a simple definition, maybe birthing a child, but mothering is so much more, right? Mm-hmm. Mothering is nurturing and support and guidance. And so the words of this book are words that came to me literally in the middle of the night during a really dark time in my life.
And I purchased these, and anyone puts their hands up, I'll pass them out as she.
And when I heard these words whispered to my heart, I felt loved, I felt hopeful, and I felt optimistic. And that's everything that we want for our children and that we want for ourselves. And so what I'd like for you all to do, if you would, remember I'm a psychiatrist, I'm going to put you through an exercise here, is to close your eyes and remember yourself when you were 5 or 6 years old. And think about that person that spent time with you, that spoke to you, that talked to you about your day, that read to you at night. Are you there? And imagine that loving someone, maybe it was your mother, reading you this story. God has bigger than I can see. It's higher than a mountain, taller than a tree, farther than the sky, and as deep as the sea. It's God's special plan made just for me to help me become all I can be. All I have to do is trust and believe something amazing is waiting for me. No matter what other people may say, with God, nothing can get in my way. So when friends hurt my feelings and make me sad, or when I'm in trouble because I've been bad, there is one thing I still believe. I believe that my God has a plan for me. When I am afraid and I think I will fail, or when I am hurting and have no one to tell, there is one thing I still believe. I believe that my God has a plan for me. When I look at how God planned the world around me, the mountains, the trees, the sky, the sea, there is one thing I clearly see. How beautiful God's plan for me must be. Now open your eyes, and I pray that you feel hope, optimism, and a sense of purpose. And I want you to walk out of this room today, and in your healing process, find a child or a mother to instill that same sense of hope in. And that will be part of your healing. Thank you.
And we'll take a list of all the individuals that want one, because there's no more important thing that I can do is to put the book in the hand of the people who need it. So that's a vow that I have. Give me your name, your information, and I will make sure you get a book if you didn't get one today.
Woo! I am so honored and grateful to God and to all of you that came here this morning and joined our morning session. Today is about healing. We are here to help hearts heal. And if I forget to tell you today, or even tomorrow, or you see me at a rally or in church, thank you, and I love you, and I appreciate you spending time celebrating the kickoff of the Alan Bluford Foundation. Alan's life and all of our sons, all of our kids, their lives will not be in vain. This is just the beginning. And we will get justice. You see, God has our justice. And we are angry and we are upset. But the Bible says, I have to stand on the word of God. That's who I am. This is who I was born to be. And the Bible says, vengeance is mine, said the Lord. And he will avenge us of our adversaries. Miguel Masso is no longer a police officer with Oakland Police Department. He is not on the streets to take anyone else's life. He may suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, and he may not have to go through a judge in Marin County, but my God is my judge, and he will have to answer to him. Since Alan is resting in Jesus, there has not been another shooting by Oakland Police Department since May 6th of 2012. Now you can call that not justice, or you can look ahead to the hills and know that that is God's justice, because he's off the street. That's huge for me. Because my son's life is not in vain. And what has happened to Alan has, although it's not and it was on the news. We went to the Poconos and somebody knew, huh, Alan? We went wherever we went, they said, Alan, I heard about it. It doesn't always have to be that big story, but we have a story. And we have something to say. And trust me and believe me that God has our justice. Now, I want to thank all my panelists. I want to thank all my mothers. I want to thank everybody who came to the morning session. We're going to move swiftly. We have lunch for you. We want to feed. It's downstairs in the dining room. Please, get you some food. Get nourished, because we're coming back at 1 o'clock. And it is going down in the name of Jesus. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you. And if you'd like to stop at the donation table and make the donation, I don't like all that offering calling for, but it's necessary that we have fun. If you would like, please stay, join us. Again, at 1 o'clock we will reconvene. Thanks.